So what pitch do you think that is at the leaf blower?
I'm Ron Gretz, and after 37 years, I will be retiring as the Artistic Director and Conductor of Annapolis Opera, and I'd like to introduce Craig Kier.
I'm Craig Kier, the Artistic and Music Director Designate for Annapolis Opera, and I will begin my tenure in July. So, Ron, you've been the Artistic Director for Annapolis Opera for now 37 years,
37.
Right? That is remarkable.
It's hard to believe. I started at Annapolis in 1981 conducting Die Fledermaus. Richard Getke was the artistic director at the time. The company was in their 10th year, and I knew many of the people in the orchestra, but Richard was bringing down conductors from New York. He worked with New York City Opera and would bring down singers and conductors from City Opera. And the orchestra kept encouraging him to hire me, and he said, I've never seen this guy conduct. And finally in 1981, he was doing Fledermaus, and the person he hired canceled like right at the end, and he called me up and said, I'm going to hire you because the orchestra said I should. So that started my time with Annapolis. And when I took over, I of course was terribly excited. My plan at the beginning was to basically continue what Richard Getke had done. Hire singers from New York and do 3 operas a year and go, do the main repertoire as well as a lot of contemporary pieces. But since there was this financial difficulty, I found that we could not hire people from New York. And so we started rehiring singers who were local. And that's how the opera company actually started in 1972.
So when you started casting for Annapolis Opera, when you were charged with that, and you discovered you couldn't necessarily bring people from out of town, it wasn't necessarily a negative to engage local people. In some ways, it probably enriched the connection the company has to the immediate region. And did you find that the vocal quality was actually quite high?
Absolutely.
Great.
It was fabulous, and plus the people in this area knew the names of a lot of these singers because they were local. So I finally wound up doing only 1 opera a year for probably a decade. That's all they could afford to do.
So you found yourself thinking really creatively about how to take a repertoire that you wanted to do, that you knew the audience wanted, and to maybe fit it into a space that wouldn't necessarily allow you to do grand opera. So
Well,
Aida has offstage brass,
Oh,
an orchestra of 62
huge.
usually,
Yes.
2 separate choruses,
Right.
all of these principles.
And elephants.
An elephant, right, exactly.
People want their elephants.
Yeah. So, did you always perform in Maryland Hall for the entire season?
No. We were at a school, Annapolis High School was newly built, and we moved into that facility, and we were there for certainly all through the 90s. And then when Maryland Hall renovated and started to become an arts community there, with the symphony and the ballet and the choral group, and Annapolis Opera was asked to be a part of all of that. And so that was the beginning for us.
And Maryland Hall is kind of an amazing space from my perspective, just because for a town the size of Annapolis to have a center for the arts that brings together a symphony, a ballet company, an opera, you tell me, I'm sure I'm missing lots of things, artists of all varieties,
Right.
A way to also display art is quite unique, and I think what many towns aspire to. And Annapolis has figured out a way to do that, which I think also is part of the reason that this company exists and is thriving.
Well, another thing that all of the singers have loved is it's not a huge house. It seats about 750 people, and a lot of houses in Germany are
That size, exactly.
Plus the acoustics are great. Singers walk in and go, wow, this looks good, but how is it to sing? And I said, you're going to love it. You don't have to push the voice. You could sing over the orchestra. It's a really great situation. One of the things that it lacked, and which is they're now redoing, is the backstage was quite a problem. We have no wing space. We can't fly things in, and because of that, we had to have all of our sets built, brought through the front doors. There was no loading dock, so we had countless problems. But they're slowly solving them. We had no orchestra pit. We now have an orchestra pit.
So these are the things that when you signed on to be an artistic director, you had no idea were part of your job description, right?
That's right.
So when I think about what have you helped accomplish, the list includes a venue that you can do opera in that has some offstage space to load things into, an orchestra pit, which we take for granted in a proscenium theater, almost, right? The amount of repertoire that you've been able to do over the years. So let's get back to the artistic director job that it sounds like you weren't necessarily looking for when you were given it. Is that true?
I wasn't looking for being the artistic director. Yeah. Actually, I just wanted to conduct.
There you go. Like so many people, you wanted to conduct.
And eventually, the company started getting more backing, and we went to 2 operas a year. And life was wonderful, and I was all excited, and we started having auditions in New York, and bringing down at least 1, maybe 2 singers for each of our main productions, and hiring the rest of the singers from around the area. There are a lot of wonderful singers in Baltimore, Washington area, as you well know.
Yeah, so let me ask, why do you think that is? Why is there such a wealth of vocal and musical talent that exists in this immediate area?
Well, I think a lot of it has to do with the schools that are here, Peabody Conservatory, certainly in Baltimore, and University of Maryland. We were fortunate to be able to use local singers. Then we started hiring a few people from New York. It was like my second season. We did Rigoletto. I was able to hire a wonderful young tenor. His name was Richard Leach. We called him and wanted him to do the Duke, and he told his agent he didn't want to do it because this is some little opera company that he had never heard of, and his agent said, "You don't have this on your resume. You need to do the opera." And he said, "This is a great place to do it, and a great place to get a start." Well, Richard came down. He did it with us. The next year he did it with Baltimore Opera. The next year he did it at City Opera, and the next year he did it at the Met. So here we started that thing of giving young singers a chance to do maybe a role they've never done before. Indeed. And I've heard so many people after productions are over mention the fact that, oh, I've been to the Met and saw the same production, or I've been to Washington Opera. It was so wonderful to see it in Annapolis because you're closer to the singers. Because it's a small house. Right. You can see expressions on people's faces. And the fact that you hire these young singers, relative, in their 20s and early 30s, to do these roles like Bohème, Marriage of Figaro, all of these operas, the people involved are in their 20s. And their dramatic action is very exciting. They're able to run around the stage like in Bohème and be very playful and have a great time together.
When we think about emerging artists, there's this kind of pathway that is almost expected, but it's tricky for young singers because they go to an undergraduate degree, likely get a master's degree, maybe they get an artist diploma from a school, and then if they're lucky enough, they get into a big young artist program. But right. Even after that, what do you do after that? Annapolis seems to provide opportunities that make certain that what we see on stage also is reality in casting. So for example, in Bohème, the opening scene of all these young artists,
right.
literally
yes.
young artists that have no money.
That have no money.
Literally what a young singer feels like, what all of us feel like when we're young, right? So how has your work helped along these young singers that we see that need opportunities to hone their craft and be heard?
We have, over the years, hired these people who are right out of grad school, and maybe have done some apprentice program somewhere, but they're pretty much the people who audition for us. And they're the people that we're looking for. We want to give them a start.
And taking a chance, giving them an opportunity to try, because so few singers are given the chance to thrive, to find out, are they going to be successful in a professional setting? And that also seems important to what Annapolis Opera does in the wider industry.
Yes.
Giving emerging artists the opportunity to practice their craft while maybe not being fully formed, but well on their way.
Right. One instance, when we did Barber of Seville, all of those characters are young at the beginning of Barber of Seville. This young baritone came in, Scott Purcell, and he auditioned for us. He had done the role once someplace, and we just loved his singing, loved his performance. And he, we called him up and offered him the Barber. He was shocked. He said, you know, you don't know me at all. And to get a major role like that, when you audition for something and you've only done the role once, people don't take a chance on you. They want you to have the experience that you've done it 15 times, and then, you know, then they'll hire you. And that's the way it's been in opera, I think. That all of the major companies, they don't hire somebody who's only done a role one time.
Where have some of the singers that began at Annapolis Opera gone on to sing?
Well, we've hired singers who eventually went on to the Met. Several singers have sung at Santa Fe Opera and San Francisco Opera. Many of them have gone to Europe. Kind of worked both ways, that we've gotten people from major houses come to Annapolis, and a lot of singers from Annapolis have gone on to have big careers other places.
Wonderful. So you've become a member of many singers' team of support to help give them that opportunity, raise them up, and then when someone calls you and says, how did this singer do in this role, you can say, you should engage them.
Yes.
So your job as artistic director is much more than just the production. Your job continues well after, as you consider ways to expand the Annapolis Opera's work by supporting these singers long term. So Ron, thank you so much for sitting down today, for sharing your perspective with me and with our audience, as well as all of the advice that you've given me over the past 2 years. And we really look forward to celebrating your retirement and honoring the work that you've done over your 37 years by continuing this company forward.